When you're David Lee Roth's jogging buddy and you happen to have a newly recorded demo tape in your pocket, kind of a no-brainer what you do next. Believe it or not, though, this is exactly how today's band got their big break. Van Halen, at the peak of the Diamond Dave era, they invited a group of unknown musicians to open their massive 1984 tour. And technically, these guys weren't even a band. They just jammed together on the weekends. But you better believe after getting a Van Halen invite on one of the biggest tours ever, they got serious really quick. So serious that they wrote one of the greatest Bottled Lightning rockers of the 80s. So get ready. You have to hear this story for yourself. Otherwise, you'd never believe it. You can't make this stuff up. It's coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you would never, ever consider leaving a concert before the encores, no matter how old you are or how tired you are, you're going to dig this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below right now by clicking the red button. Click the bell so that you get the notifications when our new interviews and videos drop. We also have a Patreon. You're going to want to check that out. We have additional content there, exclusive, that you're going to want to see. You can also become an honorary producer to help us curate this great history. Check out our Vintage Years collection as well. The merch is below. So it's time for another edition of our series, Bottled Lightning, where we celebrate a song or an album that was king for a day or many days. Here, we honor artists and bands that rocketed up the charts in a very quick way, but for reasons unknown, they weren't able to sustain that success long term. Called by some as one-hit wonders. We definitely celebrate them instead as lightning in a bottle. Today, we're going to break down a classic staple from the spandex era, Autograph's great 80s rocker, Turn Up the Radio. The classic 80s lineup of Autograph consisted of guitar virtuoso Steve Lynch, there's vocalist and rhythm guitarist Steve Plunkett, bassist Randy Rand, keyboardist Steve Isham, and drummer Kenny Richards. In 1983, when Autograph came together, these California musicians actually had no intention of forming a band. At this time, Lynch and Isham were already playing with Holly Penfield. Plunkett was in a group that was called Silver Condor. Richards was in a band called The Coup, and Rand was playing with Lita Ford. Said Lynch, we were just guys who got together that played in different incarnations of bands. We'd get together on the weekends and just jam and drink beer, have fun, and play AC/DC and Thin Lizzy songs. Those weekend jam sessions, they took place at Victory Rehearsal Studios and eventually led to the guys writing original songs together. One day, famed producer Andy Johns of Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and Eric Clapton fame caught some of their stuff, and he loved it. Johns encouraged them to cut a demo. And since he already had some free time at a studio, he offered his help. Now, this ragtag band was all for it, and they ended up recording 5 songs. So what happened next is pretty cool. About the same time that they made their demo with Andy Johns, Kenny Richards was hanging out with Van Halen's David Lee Roth. These two were jogging buddies. They both hung out at the Troubadour, and according to Lynch, the friends would go run until they puked, and then they'd hit the clubs and the parties. Well, one day, Dave asked Kenny, what are you up to? Richards told him he was playing in a band called The Coup. Dave was so interested, and so Kenny played him some of their songs. But Roth thought they were all right. But then Kenny mentioned that he had just cut this other demo with some weekend warriors, as he called it. And when Roth heard that demo, he started raving about it. He loved it and immediately invited Kenny and company to open on their 1984 tour. That would be like a pinch me moment for sure. Richards reportedly said that Dave put Eddie Van Halen on the phone to work out the details, and Eddie told him, we need a t-shirt band on the road with us. And Kenny asked, what's a t-shirt band? And Eddie Van Halen replied, t-shirt band is a band that nobody wants to watch, and they go out and buy our t-shirts when you're playing. Later, when he was asked about the story, guitarist Steve Lynch laughed and said he didn't doubt that that was true. Now, when news got back to the rest of the guys, of course, they were all stunned. Basically, they were just a group of unknown musicians who were messing around in their spare time. But they all agreed, T-shirt band or not, they couldn't pass up a chance to tour with Van Halen on the 1984 tour. Since they'd all finished recording with their other bands, they figured they could spare a few months to tour. That's exactly what they did. But before heading out on tour, they had to write a few more songs, so they had some things to play. After that, they rented a beat-up Winnebago and they drove from LA to Jacksonville, Florida for their first show where they played in front of 22,000 rabid Van Halen fans. Insane. I can even imagine. 5 casual friends just jamming on the weekends. They were completely unknown. They had no album, no recording contract. They didn't even have a name for their band at this point. And now they were driving cross country to play the biggest show of their lives, or shows of their lives. Now, somewhere in Texas, they realized that they better come up with a band name. On the fly, they chose Autograph. Opening night happened on January 18th, 1984. I have no doubt that Van Halen sold a lot of t-shirts that night because they weren't quite ready. But even so, Autograph, they held their own. The tour would consist of 48 shows, and in that time, this upstart band, they started to slowly turn some heads. And of course, as we all know now, the 1984 tour was a complete success, and it garnered Autograph some sensational exposure. And just as an aside, I should mention that Autograph, Steve Plunkett, and Randy Rand used to play in a group called Wolfgang. And also, Van Halen actually used to open for Wolfgang at the Troubadour and some other clubs in LA. This was 5 years before Autograph opened for Van Halen. And just a crazy twist of fate there. But despite Autograph's good fortune to land on an opening slot with the mighty Van Halen, that didn't mean the tour was all smooth sailing. In fact, Steve Lynch's prowess on the guitar would cause some waves in the beginning. As we get into this part of the story, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. The glasses I wear on the regular. Right now, if you click on our special link in the description below, you'll be able to get the best deals on your choice of customizable frames. Design your own unique look. You build your pair based on color, shape, style, and you can add your own unique features, like blue blocks to protect your eyes from digital blue light. Also, download the Zenni app. You're going to love it. So Lynch had been honing some next-level guitar techniques for years. As far back as 1974, he'd been practicing multi-finger tapping techniques. By 1978, he started going full force. And in 1979, Lynch published the first of what would be multiple guitar textbooks on how to finger tap with 2 hands. This was just about the time that Eddie was coming onto the scene as well. So back to the tour. Apparently, Lynch's reputation had preceded him because even before he took the stage, a Van Halen manager tracked him down to have a little talk with him. You're the one that wrote that book on the 2-handed technique, right? Steve responded that, it was him. Well, you can't do that on this tour because that's Eddie's thing. Lynch replied, this is not somebody's technique. The way I do it is completely different. It's a completely different technique altogether. But still, the manager was adamant. No, that's Eddie's thing. You don't do that on this tour. Of course, Lynch was fuming. He didn't even want to go on stage, but he did. You have to. And he had to figure out how to improvise his solos in the process of this whole thing. And then one night after getting a little buzzed on Jack Daniels backstage, Lynch actually caught Eddie walking by and he said, hey, Eddie, why don't you call off the dog so I can do my own thing? Eddie said, I know who you are. I've heard about you from all these different people in LA. You can do whatever you want, Steve. Don't worry about it at all. It was then that Steve realized that Eddie really had nothing to do with the crackdown. And from then on, everything was cool. He got to play how he wanted to play. As a result of the Van Halen tour, though, record labels began a bidding war over signing Autograph. All of a sudden, this hastily assembled band had the world laid out at their feet. When RCA Records offered to let them, keep 100% of their publishing, that's when they really found a winner. So they quit their other bands, and they signed a 3-album deal backstage at Madison Square Garden in New York. It was during that Van Halen tour that Autograph wrote much of their material for the first album. It was titled Sign In Please. It took 30 days to record and master, And it was released in the fall of 1984. I believe it was October 9th. Sign In, Please is a seriously solid collection of hook-laden songs. Plunkett has a knack for catchy choruses, and he leads the band through some unexpectedly memorable and melodic rockers. Autograph released 2 singles from Sign In, Please, Send Her to Me, and of course, Turn Up the Radio. It was during a rehearsal after the Van Halen tour, just 2 days before going into the studio, that Autograph actually finished writing Turn Up the Radio. Lynch revealed that the demo version of the song was actually called Turn Up the Cassette Machine. That wasn't really going to work. You know, the phrase was a little awkward to sing, so they swapped cassette for radio, and of course, it was a great choice. So in the first of what would be many warning signs to come, RCA actually didn't want to put the song on the album. Looking back, and it seems like a no-brainer. Turn Up the Radio was Autograph's biggest hit, but RCA, they didn't hear it. Thankfully, the guys fought for the song with all their might, and it did make the cut. They also had to fight to release it as the first single. RCA favored Send Her to Me, but Autograph kept telling RCA it had to be Turn Up the Radio. Radio stations were going to love it, and they were right. Radio stations went crazy for it, of course. That's actually pushing their own radio station. In fact, Autograph spent 2 days recording personalized promos for every major U.S. station to send out with this song. Brilliant campaign. So Turn Up the Radio may not win any awards for lyrical creativity because, let's face it, they're pretty basic. Daytime, nighttime, anytime, things go better with rock. I'm going 24 hours a day, I can't seem to stop. However, that being said, the lyrics do exactly what they're supposed to do in rock and roll. Turn Up the Radio was designed to be a call to action, or more precisely, a call to rock. Written to directly engage the listener, its the sole purpose is to, get your head banging, your fist in the air, similar to other 80s rockers like Come On Feel the Noise. And I Wanna Rock. And that's something that we used to do that's now really a lost art. We used to raise our fists, we used to bang our heads, we used to rock. With Autograph's perfect slice of arena rock, you can go back to those moments anytime you want, whether in your living room or driving with all the windows down. The song, it just gets you amped up. I mean, I remember when I was like 9 years old. I was riding in the cab of my dad's pickup. He was flipping through radio stations, listening to oldies music, which I normally love. But that day I had just bought Autograph and I wanted to hear Turn Up the Radio as loud as I could. So I had it inside my Walkman and I was pressing the headphones into my ears really hard, trying to drown out my dad's music. I don't know if you ever did that in the car. I got so lost in this music before I knew it, I was singing really loud, fist pumping as if I were on stage with a band. Of course, suddenly I turned to see my dad laughing his head off at my absolute commitment and passion to this hard rock classic. I mean, this song, it's electrifying. I mean, I challenge you to try and get through this song without doing exactly what I did as a kid. You can't do it unless you're dead inside. Anyway, by the way, one thing that the song did win an award for is Lynch's masterful guitar work. Steve won Guitar Solo of the Year in 1985 from Guitar Player magazine, thanks to his distinctive two-handed fretboard tapping technique. Now, the video for Turn Up the Radio, it's a fun ride, but it's also one of the most glaringly obvious examples of product placement in music video history. Actually, the shoot was funded by Papermate, who deals in office supplies and writing instruments. And with a name like Autograph and an album titled Sign In Please, yeah, I could see how that might happen. The video features Papermate's sharp writer mechanical pencil almost as prominently as the band itself. From an extended sign-in sequence to the band throwing a pencil to a girl in the audience, it's almost as overt as that classic Wayne's World bit.
Maybe I'm wrong on this one, but for me, the beast doesn't include selling out.
The Papermate, commercial or not, Turn Up the Radio was a huge hit on MTV. Another than the corporate America advertising, the guys turn in a really rockin' performance, and it's still an entertaining slice of 80s nostalgia. Always love to go back and watch those videos. Turn Up the Radio, it reached number 17 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart, and it actually went to number 29 on the Hot 100. Also reached number 53 in RPM's Canada, their top singles chart. And by April 1st, it was a certified gold single, far bigger than its eventual peak on the Hot 100. I mean, it ruled rock radio. It's still blasted today. Unfortunately, it would be Autograph's only song to turn up in the top 40. The next single, Center to Me, failed to chart on the Hot 100. And so did another 5 in 86 and 87. Turn Up the Radio has not only lit up radio all time, it's left a lasting impression on pop culture, appearing in movies and TV shows and video games from Miami Vice.
It's going down now.
To The Low Life, Hot Tub Time Machine. There's also Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, Alpha Protocol, and Guardians of the Galaxy's video game. So the question is, what happened to Autograph? Well, after they dropped Sign In Please, Autograph recorded 2 more albums for RCA, appeared in multiple movie soundtracks and television shows, and they toured with Motley Crue and Heart and Aerosmith, and actually Ronnie James Dio, Bryan Adams as well, and Whitesnake. Their 1985 sophomore release, That's the Stuff, boasted a pair of Top Gear singles in Blondes and Black Cars, and the anthemic title track. However, due to lackluster label support, it only reached number 92 on the Billboard Albums chart. And the trend didn't change much at all for 1987's Loud and Clear. Rock and pop were a low priority for RCA at this point. During this time, sales went down not only for Autograph, but for a lot of bands on that label. Kenny Rogers, the Pointer Sisters, Eurythmics, and even Mr. Mister. So take these broken wings and meanwhile, RCA poured almost all of their attention into their number one artist, Elvis Presley. Even though the king had passed years back, RCA was happy to make a nice payday off of his memory. They remastered old tapes and put out box sets. Actually, Elvis made more for the company than all the bands I just mentioned combined. After Autograph finished their 3-album deal with RCA in 1988, the band started shopping around for another label and demoed some songs for Epic. But musical trends were already shifting by that point. Said Lynch, we were at rehearsal and I just put my guitar in my case and I said, yeah, I'm done. Randy immediately followed suit and that was it. Autograph was an 80s band, and the 80s were over. It was literally December of 1989 when they disbanded. It had been a fun ride, but it was time to move on to newer projects. In 1997, the Epic demos were compiled by Steve Plunkett for a 4th studio album, Missing Pieces. However, it was done without Lynch's permission, who had written 7 out of the 11 songs. That would remain a sore spot. In 2005, Plunkett issued another Autograph album called Buzz, even though he was the only original member involved at this point. 2013, Steve Lynch, Randy Rand, and Kenny Richards reunited to give it another go. Sadly, keyboardist Steve Isham had passed by this time, and Steve Plunkett's voice wasn't what it used to be. So the trio hired vocalist Simon Daniels to replace him. The reformed Autograph released a 5-song EP, Louder, in 2016, and a full-length album, Get Off Your Ass, in 2017. Get off your ass! Get off your ass! In a tragic turn of events, drummer Kenny Richards was shot and killed when a drug deal went bad. In 2019, Steve Lynch once again decided to call it quits. That meant bassist Randy Rand was the only original member left. However, Rand passed away in 2022, leaving the lineup comprised of completely new members. They then released a new album called Beyond, dedicated to Randy's memory. You know, Autograph may not have had another big hit, but they wrote a perfect hit for radio in the 80s that still resonates today. Its message, it means even more now, since mainstream radio's best days have really come and gone. But this rocker reminds us that there was a time when the music was so fantastic that it was the most natural thing in the world to do exactly what the chorus implies. Turn up the radio, I need the music, give me some more. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Autograph and this perfect slice of arena rock, Turn Up the Radio. What do you remember about this song? What do you remember about this band? What do you think? Is it the best Bottled Lightning rock and roll song or hard rock song of the 80s? Let's have a great discussion. If not, what is? If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe below to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.